I've been waiting for you.
Because this video is an absolute banger, the best checkmate of my life, the nicest game I've ever played. So make sure to share, like, and subscribe because you don't wish to miss a content like this ever again. It will make you become a better chess player.
I have a forced checkmate in 5. I sacrificed my bishop on d4. And now this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Already sacrificed my rook, my bishop. I'm gonna sacrifice my queen as well. This game started with the move knight f3, and mind you, back then when I was 13, I didn't really know much of an opening theory. However, I used to be quite good in freestyle, and that's an ability that I lost ever since I started learning openings. So I just played the move knight f6, just planning to play some sort of Nimzo Indian or Grunfeld defense or whatever I used to play back then. But just basically waiting for white to show me what are they playing for. So now my opponent played the move g3 and I played the move d5. In this position, white has quite a few different options. One of them is just playing with d3, so the king's Indian attack, or playing d4, some sort of delayed Catalan where white hasn't played the move c4, or c4 just playing a Catalan without the move d4. It's all about the move orders. However, my opponent opted for d4, which is some sort of delayed Catalan, waiting to play the move c4. That was probably my opponent's intention. Now the most logical move is to play the move c5. Since white hasn't really attacked my center, I'll be the one who will start with it. So now I'm putting some pressure on the pawn on d4. I think that here after bishop g2 I could have probably taken. I should have taken. Because I'm exchanging the pawn on the c file for the pawn on the d file, that means that if my opponent retakes, I'll get this kind of structure, right? The two pawns in the middle. That's really good for black. If white takes with the queen, I go knight c6, I hit the queen. That's also winning some time, winning a tempo. Probably I will be able to play e5 as follows. That would have been much better. Unfortunately, I didn't really know much of a theory of this opening, so I played g6, and the idea is bishop g7, short castle. My opponent played short castle, bishop g7, so nothing remarkable to talk about as of yet. But now my opponent played the move e3, and I find this move quite weird. Typically, the rule of thumb is that if you play g3 and then you fianchet to your bishop, you don't want to move with the pawn on the e2. Because then you're opening up both of the diagonals, but your bishop can technically occupy only one of them, right? So if you put the bishop on e2 in this structure, I'm gonna go bishop h3 and take an advantage of the move g3 that weaken the castle. If you go bishop g2, it is weakening this diagonal. Also now it is blocking the bishop on c1. It is also pretty passive considering that, you know, white is tempo up in the opening. I don't really know why to play such a passive opening. But my opponent went for it. I played the move knight c6 and now my opponent played c3. So as you can see, my opponent is putting all of the pawns on dark squares. This bishop on c1 just absolutely sucks. Now I played a move that I'm not a big fan of in hindsight. I can't really figure out why did I play it, and maybe I wanted to get the control over the d3, but I played the move c4. And now I think that the best idea for my opponent is to just try to undermine the pawn chain. Play the move b3. That would have been really strong because now I probably have to take. And after this exchange, as you can see, white has 3v2 in the center, can play probably c4. Then exchange, it will be 2v1 in the center. So I'm not a big fan of that, and sadly I can't play the move b5 extending the pawn chain because then white goes a4. And if I play the move a6, then my opponent is going to take, and I'm not in time to protect the rook. So this would have been pretty bad. I would have to take on b3, and probably the position would be sort of equal because white is still very passive, but I don't think that c4 is improving my position at all. So I played the move c4, and now my opponent played the move rook e1. Just playing for the move e4, trying to undermine the pawn chain in a slightly different way. However, white is not really in time to do it because I can always play the move bishop f5 and stop the e4. So now my opponent played knight h4, trying to get rid of the bishop that is stopping e4. So if I go bishop d7, white goes e4 and finally manages to undermine the pawn chain. However, my idea is to play the move bishop d3. That's why I played the move bishop f5, right? Just landing the bishop on a very weak square because my opponent has already played e3, c3. It will be very difficult to dislodge the bishop unless my opponent plays the move bishop f1, which is what was played. However, I don't really mind exchanging white's light square bishop because it is controlling all of these weak squares. And even though, you know, you might argue that I'm also exchanging the bishop that can penetrate these weak squares, I can also use my queen or my knight to just land on these weak squares. So I definitely want to remove this bishop that is controlling all of white's weaknesses. And now after rook takes, I was just like, you know what, let's just play e5. Let's just grab more space in the center. It makes absolute sense. My opponent is playing passively. And what should you do when your opponent is playing the opponent in a very suspicious way? Just identify what is wrong with what your opponent did and play directly against it. So if your opponent is giving you all the space in the world, just take it. That's exactly what I did. Now my opponent played knight g2 and I played queen c8. The idea is to land the queen on h3 and then play knight g4 and checkmate. Obviously, my opponent is not going to fall for it, but at least I'm going to activate my pieces. So I landed my queen on h3 and my opponent played f3, just trying to protect the g4 square. That makes absolute sense. However, that's not the only idea that I have. I will leave the queen, do her own stuff there, just wait for a minute, and as you will see, the queen will be quite useful at some point. So I played rook e8, just planning to double up on the e-file, where I have quite a lot of squares, because I grabbed a lot of space with the move e5, so it won't be a big problem. I can maybe eventually even triple up if I want to. And after knight f1, I play the move rook e7, just, you know, proceeding with my plan. And after queen c2, I played the move rook e8, planning to take on d4, and if my opponent retakes, I'm going to take the rook, and after knight takes, I'm going to win the knight. So let's say something like a3, just to demonstrate what is my plan. This is it. Winning a piece. If my opponent takes with the c-pawn, this pawn is still pinned because of the pressure on e1, so I can take with the knight. And now after all this, white's position is hopeless. I'm pawn up, and I'm threatening a checkmate. All of my pieces are active. So that would have been really good. So my opponent decided to play the move bishop d2, which makes a lot of sense, just protecting the rook, so e takes d4 doesn't really work anymore. And in this position, I decided to play the move g5. Well, the idea of the move g5 is that the position is closed, so I can get away with weakening my king a little bit, because there is no way how can white take an advantage of it. And then I can play the move g4. And if my opponent takes, I will finally land my knight there. If my opponent doesn't take, we'll have to play something like f4, but that is going to weaken the e4 square. So my opponent played rook d1, I played g4, and after f4, I went for e takes, and now rook e2. And now this is a really nice move, because I'm threatening a checkmate, right? And now what should I do? Well, knight h4 is, according to the engine, the only move. That still holds the position, although black is better. But my opponent took with the rook. I recaptured, threatening the checkmate once again. And after knight fe3, I played the move knight e4. Improving my knight. Like, the knight is just a monster there, because how are you gonna dislodge the knight, right? You have no pawns on the d or f files that would be able to do it. And this knight is probably gonna stay there for the rest of the game. And now, believe it or not, after queen c1, I have a forced checkmate in 5. It is absolutely brutal. I sacrificed my bishop on d4. Brilliant move. Double exclamation mark. Now I'm threatening queen takes g2 checkmate. What is the idea if my opponent takes, right? What is going on? Well, then I'm going to take with my knight. And it is quite nice that I sacked the bishop, because that was the worst piece in the position. And now look at all of my pieces. All of them ready to annihilate my opponent's king. And now what is white going to go for, right? Because knight f3 is a threat of a checkmate. If king h1, then I take with my queen. Or if king f1, then I can maybe go even rook f2 checkmate. My opponent played bishop e1. Could have even played something like rook f1, but then I'm just simply going to take on g2. And after knight takes, I go knight e2 check. And I'm not just winning the queen, I'm not interested in the queen at all. I'm delivering a checkmate. So rook f1 would not work. But what else can white do? Well, bishop e1 seemed to make the most sense, because it is controlling the f2 square. So after knight f3, my opponent can probably still play something like king f1, which is not really gonna lead into a good position, but I spotted something much more brutal. I took on e1. I'm sacrificing all of my pieces, one by one, but I don't care. Because if you take with a knight, I'm gonna go knight e2. Again, winning the queen, but I don't really care, because you have to go to h1, right? And then I take on g3 with a checkmate, or knight f2 with a checkmate. But what happened was that my opponent took on e1 with the rook, which makes probably the most sense. And now this is the moment we've all been waiting for. In this position, I played queen takes h2, sacrificed my queen. I already sacrificed my rook, my bishop. I'm gonna sacrifice my queen as well. I don't care. I will sacrifice every single piece one by one until I checkmate white. Now in this position, it seems that white's best move is king takes h2. Just accepting the sacrifice. Because if king f1, then I play queen h1. And it is a checkmate on the spot. So my opponent has to take. But after that, I play another move with a double exclamation mark. Knight f3 check. Oh, I see that it is only a single exclamation mark. But it's still a really good move. Because now I'm checking the king. You can't go to g1, you can't go to g3 because that's where is your pawn, and you can't go to h3 because that's something I control with my pawn. So you have to go king h1. And now, ladies and gentlemen, knight f2 checkmate. Look at these two knights. This is the most picturesque mate I've ever delivered, and I will probably ever deliver. This is so beautiful.